Zarin, and we hope to provide you with data that you can use to better inform your wager and decisions moving forward. We will be previewing tomorrow's playoff quadruple header in the NBA. Thank you again for joining me this evening if you're on the East Coast, and good afternoon if you're out west like I am. We are airing a little bit earlier today than usual. We still have the Celtics 76ers game that's ongoing, and we do have a Clippers Mavericks game pending tonight. You can get 20% off any BetQL subscription by using the promo code of Chan, spelled CHAN. You'll get access to all 4-star and 5-star bets by BetQL model. Just to give you an example as to how these 4-star and 5-star bets have performed thus far in the playoffs, yesterday's 5-star bet was on the Portland Trailblazers at 6.5 points, and that one would have cashed for you if you had access to the model yesterday. So certainly subscribe, and if you are inclined to subscribe, use the promo code of Chan to get 20% off any BetQL subscription. The first game that we will review tomorrow is actually the free game that's being offered on the BetQL website. The free game is between the Indiana Pacers and the Miami Heat. The Heat are 4.5-point favorites, and the over-under total for the game is 215. The Heat prevailed in Game 1 against the Pacers, and one thing that I think that is interesting about the game is that the Pacers have not beaten the Heat in any meaningful game this season. They're going to be without the services of Victor Oladipo as he left Game 1 with an eye injury. The problem for the Pacers, I think, in this series is that they lost Game 1 somewhat handily, despite Miami not really getting hot from the three-point line. The Heat only hit 13 three-pointers in the game, and that's been primarily the way that the Heat have been winning their ball games. They've been able to get hot from the three-point line. Duncan Robinson has been scorching from distance this entire season, and he only scored 6 points, and yet the Heat came away with a pretty comfortable victory in last night's game. So I think that the Pacers certainly have some challenges ahead of them. They're already missing All-Star Domantas Sabonis, and now they might be without Oladipo. They're already down in the series, and the Heat have been able to beat them pretty consistently, even when the Heat have not been on their game. The Thunder and Rockets will face off in Game 2 tomorrow as well. The Rockets are 2.5-point favorites against Oklahoma City. The over-under in this game is 227. Laying the 2.5 points with the Rockets is a 4-star bet right now with the BetQL model. I had mixed it up. I had mixed up the game. So the Thunder and Rockets is actually the free game, and the model right now shows that the Rockets are the bet that you should make if you want to tail the model. What I found interesting from Game 1 was the pace of the game. The pace was 98, which is closer to the pace the Rockets played last season without Russell Westbrook. As you know, Russell Westbrook and Chris Paul were effectively traded for each other in the offseason when Oklahoma City dealt Westbrook to Houston for Westbrook, and Houston dealt Chris Paul to Oklahoma City to finalize that trade. So the Rockets will again be without the services of Westbrook. He does not. There were reports today that there's not any expected timetable, that there's not any definitive timetable for his return. So I would expect another slow-paced game in the sense that there aren't going to be too many possessions or as many possessions as you would expect for a Rockets team, especially now that they will be playing without Russell Westbrook. It will probably be the Thunder probably will have great incentive to push the ball to create more possessions, as they probably can't beat the Houston in a half-court style type of game, given as that's the type of game that's pretty much made for James Harden. The Thunder will be without the services, or expected to be without the services, of Luguentz Dortz Dortz was another player that had been playing well for Oklahoma City down the stretch, and he's just another 3-point threat that Oklahoma City will be missing tomorrow. Houston's going to shoot 53, so Oklahoma City is going to have to find a way to narrow the margin given the volume of threes that Houston's going to take tomorrow. They're going to have to figure out a way to make up for what will likely be a scoring gap from the 3-point line. So the free game, the free game on the BetQL website is actually the Thunder and the Rockets. It's a 4-star bet on the Houston Rockets at 2.5. So if you want to tail the model, if you want to lay the points with Houston tomorrow. It's interesting that Houston was an underdog in most sports books by game time for game one, but it's reverted now 3 or 3.5 points to Houston's favor after they defeated the Thunder handily in game one. If you want to get access to all 4 playoff games tomorrow, you can go subscribe to BetQL, and you can get 20% off any subscription if you use the promo code CHAN. All sports are available. You can gain access to the BetQL model's projected bets or projected scores and statistics in any baseball game scheduled for tomorrow, any hockey game that's scheduled for tomorrow. And this will also be the case when the NFL season kicks off and whatever we can get from the college football season. So if you want to gain access to not just the free pick, but all 4 picks tomorrow for the NBA playoffs, you can go subscribe to BetQL. Go to the website at betql.co. The next game that we're going to review is Game 2 between the Magic and the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks are 12.5-point favorites. The over-under in this game is 227.5. The Magic pulled off a shocker in Game 1, and they defeated the Bucks somewhat handily, actually, in Game 1. So what you see right now is that there hasn't been too much of an overreaction to the Game 1 defeat, and I would urge all of you to not overreact as well. It's true that the Bucks have not played well at all since they've arrived in Orlando. They've lost 6 of their 9 games. They have not looked like the same dominant team that we saw during the course of the regular season before the season was suspended. Now, the Magic have the closest thing to a home court advantage as all the games are being played in Orlando. Their Game 1 performance may have been an aberration as it occurred without Aaron Gordon, who has arguably been Orlando's best player in the second half of the season. I think one thing that you should consider before placing a wager on this game is that the Bucks are giving up a ton of 3-pointers, and part of that has been their design. The Bucks' defensive strategy is to allow teams to shoot threes as long as they're able to defend the paint ferociously. The problem is that they've given up a lot. They gave up 16 threes against the Magic in Game 1, and they've given up an average of 16 threes since they've arrived in the bubble. That's 2 more threes than their season average, which is around 14 opponent 3-point field goals per game. Now, 2 more threes doesn't sound like a lot, but that is an extra 6 points, and that may cause Milwaukee's willingness to give up the 3 may make it make it tougher for them to cover such a large spread as 12.5 points. So, but I would look for the Bucks to get back on track, but it is difficult to lay so many points with the Bucks. The Bucks are now 17-18 ATS when they've been double-digit favorites, so they haven't really knocked the floor off when they've been so heavily favored. The final game that we're going to review is another 8-1 matchup. It's also a game that's coming off an 8-1 upset. The Blazers will face the Lakers in Game 2 tomorrow night. The Lakers are 6.5-point favorites, and the over-under total in this game is 229. This game is drawing a lot more buzz than the 8-1 Eastern Conference matchup because there's a perception that the Blazers have a much stronger chance of knocking off the Lakers than the Magic do of knocking off the Bucks in a 7-game series. What stands out to me is that even though there hasn't been an overreaction in the Bucks Magic series, I think there has been an overreaction in the Blazers Lakers series. The Lakers odds of winning the series fell to minus 225 per DraftKings Sportsbook. Just to put this number in context, the Rockets are now considered stronger favorites to win their series against the Oklahoma City Thunder than the Lakers are considered favorites to win their series against the Blazers. And that strikes me as an incredible overreaction to Game 1. The Bucks, for example, remain minus 10,000 favorites to win their first round series. So there may actually now be value on the Lakers. It's always strange to say, though, there's value in a number 1 seed in a first round matchup to win the series, but there's been that extent of an overreaction to what happened on Monday, on last night, Tuesday night. I mean, the Lakers, the game finished at 193 points, so the final total was not met, and the over failed pretty badly. It was the first game of the 4 games that the teams have played where the over was not hit, and it's largely can be attributed to the Lakers' misery on the offensive end. The Lakers' offensive rating of 104.5 before yesterday's game was the 3rd worst of all teams in the seeding games. They've only shot 43.8% from the field. That's the 4th worst of all teams in the bubble. They shot 35.1% last night, and they only connected on 5 3-pointers against Portland. Their performance yesterday, at least from an offensive perspective, hasn't really been that much of an aberration. The Lakers had been averaging only 9.9 3-point field goals per game before the disaster last night. Anthony Davis has continued to struggle since the season resumed. He's 4% from the field since the Lakers resumed their season. That's 40.4. Davis is, before the bubble, he was shooting over 50% on the season. His averages have fallen dramatically. Davis is averaging just a little bit over 22 points per game since the season resumed in Orlando. And it's shocking that the Lakers became pretty much the first team that couldn't score on Portland. Everybody's been able to score on Portland. But the Lakers not only failed to score 100 points, they failed to score 95. I mean, this is not a team that I don't think it's an understatement to say that every team has been able to score at will against the Blazers since the season resumed. I mean, Portland had been surrendering 123.2 points per game before their matchup with the Lakers. I mean, Portland has given up at least 100 points in 37 straight games before facing the Lakers. So it's not. So yesterday was as low as it gets for the loss for the Lakers. The good news for Laker fans and for those of you who are considering laying with the Lakers again in Game 2 is that they played well defensively. They held the high-powered Blazers offense to 100 points. I mean, the Lakers were the first team in 24 games to prevent the Blazers to under 40% shooting from the field, and they were the first team in 15 games that prevented the Blazers from scoring 100 points. I mean, with Davis and LeBron James in the line, the Lakers have only given up 108.8 points per game in the bubble where James and Davis have both played. So the Lakers' defense still remains elite. 7 of their 8 primary rotation players have positive defensive box plus-minus ratings on the season. The Lakers' defense is still a championship caliber defense. The problem is that their offense is as bad as we've seen from a team in a while. So that is the preview of tomorrow's games. If you want to subscribe to BetQL to gain access to the model, as well as a wealth of other information pertaining to how sharps are betting, how the public's betting, how the lines have moved, you should use the promo code Chen to get 20% off any subscription. There are weekly subscriptions available for you. There are monthly subscriptions available. There are yearly subscriptions available for you. So choose the subscription that works best for you and for your finances. The next Big Data Show will be on Friday night. We'll be back at our normal time of 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We'll actually be broadcasting from, at least we're expecting to be broadcasting from Las Vegas, Nevada, actually, on Friday's Big Data Show. So I do have some driving to do over the next couple of days. But until then, I hope you have a lot of success with your bets. Stay safe. And thank you for joining me this evening. My name is Alex Chan. Twitter handle is Ian Lazarin. We'll see you on Friday night. Thank you again.